Did you know that Japan has not one, but two exit taxes? One of them you've probably paid already, and the other one you're probably not likely to ever have to pay. In this video, I'm going to explain both of those taxes, and then for the second one in particular, I'm going to talk about who it affects, what it affects, and whether you have to worry about it. Let's talk about it. So Japan's other exit tax is actually one that I wasn't really aware of until I started doing some research for this video. I had read something about it, but I wasn't aware that it had already been implemented and that I've already paid it at least half a dozen times. So this second exit tax for Japan is actually the international tourist tax, and it's a tax that's levied on every single person. So it's not just tourists, it's also levied on Japanese citizens and residents. Anyone who leaves Japan by plane or by ship is already paying this tax. It was brought in 2019, and it's 1,000 yen surcharge that's basically included in the price of your ticket. There are a couple of exceptions to the tax. I think diplomats are exempt, children under 2 are exempt, but everyone else, every time you leave the country, you're going to be paying 1,000 yen. And this money goes towards providing kind of support for tourism and facilities for tourism. I'm not really sure how I feel about this tax. I mean, I do agree that, international travel, it's a luxury, and we should be paying to offset the costs of it. But I'm not sure that 1,000 yen is enough to do that. I'm not sure that residents and citizens should be treated the same as tourists. There's a lot of questions about this tax. At the end of the day, it's not a huge amount of money. But yeah, I can definitely see some room for improvement on that one. Quick side note, just this week, Japan announced that they're going to implement a pre-screening system for people who get visa on arrival. This is going to be the same as the US ESTA. It's the first of these systems, and pretty much every other developed country has something like this. Canada has one, Europe is bringing one in at the end of this year, I believe. The UK has one, Australia has one, New Zealand has one, and soon Japan is going to have one too. But let's get to today's main topic, which is the Japan exit tax. In Japanese, the exit tax has the rather snappy name of Kokugai Tenshutsuji Kaze Seido, and it basically means a tax system for when you leave Japan. This rather new system was established in 2015. It started applying to foreign residents from 2020, and there have been some rather major changes to the system since it started. We're going to be talking about how it works at the moment in 2025, why it started, what the purpose of this new tax was, who it applies to, what kind of assets it applies to, whether you have to worry about it, and what I think about the system in general. So this tax was created basically in order to stop wealthy Japanese people leaving Japan, sorting out their affairs so that they had to pay less tax or no tax, and then coming back again. That's the purpose of the system. It's not really aimed at foreigners. It's mainly aimed at rich Japanese people. I haven't been able to find a source for this, but I had heard that one of the reasons for the exit tax is that a Japanese person who inherited a huge amount of money from their family left Japan, moved to Singapore, where there's no capital gains tax, sold all their shares, realized the capital gains, brought the money back to Japan, and then when the tax office tried to tax them on it, they actually ended up in court, and the tax office lost. And at that point they said, right, we're not going to let this happen again, and this is where the exit tax was born. Now, I'm not sure if that's true, but it's a pretty good story, and it kind of seems to fit with my experience of bureaucracy. So who does the exit tax apply to? So the exit tax applies to Japanese citizens, and it applies to people living in Japan on what's called a Tier 2 visa. Basically be permanent residents, spouse or child of Japanese national, spouse or child of permanent resident, and a long-term resident. So people on those visas would have the exit tax applied to them. If you're in Japan on a working visa, any kind of working visa basically, the exit tax does not apply. Now this wasn't initially the case, but there's a huge pushback against the exit tax, particularly in light of Japan's efforts to bring in highly skilled professionals, and obviously highly skilled professionals don't want to come here if they're going to be taxed on their, prior assets, so they were excluded from the exit tax. There's also a duration element, which is that you have to have been living in Japan for 5 of the previous 10 years in order to be liable for the exit tax. So what kind of assets are subject to the exit tax? Well, first of all, you need to have over 100 million yen's worth of affected assets in order for the exit tax to come into play. So what kind of assets does the exit tax apply to? Well, it applies to assets over 100 million yen at the time of leaving Japan, and those assets are things that have unrealized capital gains. They're mainly stocks and shares, any kind of options, any kind of partnerships that might have that kind of capital gain involved. It does not apply to cash, doesn't apply to real estate, it doesn't apply to your personal possessions. So only certain types of people who have over 100 million yen's worth of these specific assets would ever be liable for the exit tax. So what can you do if you think that you might have to pay the exit tax? Are there any mitigation strategies? Well, most people are not going to be dinged for this. When you leave Japan, you would have to sell your own stocks and shares in Japan. You'd have to close your broker accounts, turn everything into cash, take it with you. Only if you had shares and so on abroad would this even come into play. And again, you'd have to have over 100 million yen's worth when you left. If you are just over 100 million yen, an easy way to avoid the exit tax is just to sell enough of your assets so that you're under 100 million yen, and then you wouldn't have to worry about it. Paying the capital gains so far on some of your assets in order to avoid paying it on all of your assets makes a lot of sense to me. I should probably point out here that the exit tax is about 15%. It's just over 15%. It's the national share of capital gains tax. You don't have to pay the local share of capital gains tax, which is around 5%. Now, the second type of person who would have to pay for the exit tax are people who have way more than 100 million yen's worth of specific assets. And for those people, I would say get professional advice. You can certainly afford it, and they'll be able to help you think about how to structure your assets, how to play with the timing, and how to otherwise try and avoid this exit tax when you leave Japan. Personally, I don't think I'll ever have to pay this, even if I leave Japan. As I said, most of my assets are in Japan. I'd have to sell them anyway. And at that point, I would just take the money with me and there wouldn't be any exit tax to pay. I guess the key takeaway here is that if you're on a working visa, if you think you might end up liable for the exit tax, particularly for Americans, I guess, because most of their assets are going to be invested in the US, you might want to consider not going onto a spouse visa, not going onto permanent residence, because once you do, that clock starts ticking. And 5 years later, you would be liable for the exit tax when you leave Japan. So what do you think? Are you worried about the exit tax? Do you think you'll have to pay the exit tax? Or do you know someone who had to pay the exit tax? It's only been in force since 2020. So I'm guessing that not many people so far have been affected, but I'm sure more people will be affected in the future. Would love to hear your thoughts about this tax in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.